Let's just make, okay, everything is going up. All right. Hello and welcome into the Chasing Perfection pregame show. I'm Daniel Connolly here with Megan Gower. Elite Eight tonight, UConn, Baylor, 1-2 seeds, trip to the Final Four on the line. Two of the teams that are probably playing as well as anyone in the country beside, it's probably these two teams in Stanford who are really on their game right now. So we have a lot to talk about today. First, let's just preview Baylor. Obviously, probably the toughest. I don't know. I think they're probably a tougher team to play than South Carolina. I don't think South Carolina has been that great this season. Their offense has been weird, but Baylor really seems to be firing on all cylinders. They obviously have the matchup to make this game tough for UConn. So what are your initial thoughts going into this?
Yeah, I mean, I think initially you look at the post-battle between Olivia Nelson-Ododa and Aaliyah Edwards, and then Melissa Smith and Queen Edwell for Baylor. I think, no surprise, right? Whenever we talk about a Baylor team, it usually starts with what they have inside. I think this year a little bit different. Like, it's not like that, Kalani Brown, Lauren Cox class where they just had such a physical presence inside. But, I mean, Melissa Smith is still a fantastic player, an All-American, can kind of do a lot of different things. She's pretty versatile. So I think she's still going to be a really tough matchup inside for Olivia and for Aaliyah. And then you add Queen Edbo in there as well. So they've got two players inside, which is something UConn hasn't really seen in the front court, I think, too much this season. They've done a really good job against Syracuse and against Iowa with containing that kind of one big player, but now they've got two, just like UConn has two. So I think that just makes that matchup that much more difficult. And then especially when Melissa Smith, just how good she is. She's got experience in playing in the postseason. She was such a huge part of that kind of last national championship for Baylor because Lauren Cox went out with injury in that championship game, and she came in and just hit a lot of shots for them and was a really big part of that. So I'm sure she's going to be a really big part of the game tonight as well.
Right, and I think pretty much every single time we've talked about Olivia Nelson-Ododa, either on here, on Chasing Perfection, the podcast, at least I always seem to bring up that Baylor game from last season where it seemed like she had a really good chance to kind of prove that she was one of the best centers in the country, and she just wasn't ready for it. 0 for 8 from the field, no points. I think she got benched by the end of that game, and she wasn't even out there. So it was definitely a low point in her career, and I think this is obviously a much better Olivia Nelson-Ododa than we saw last year. I still don't necessarily know if she's proven herself against these elite bigs, but I think it is a good sign that Syracuse had size with Camila Cardoso. Iowa had size with Sinano. Nelson-Ododa played pretty well in both those games, and it helps having Aaliyah Edwards out there. But there was a time, really even this season, the Providence game comes to mind for me against Mary Baskerville, where even if someone on the other team had size, Olivia Nelson-Ododa just couldn't deal with it. I think these last two games have really shown that she's a different player. And in a weird way, I almost feel like Nika Mule's injury has maybe helped this team a little bit by forcing Aaliyah Edwards to play more. She's been fantastic in the tournament. And I think I wrote about this, that last year, Olivia Nelson-Ododa had to do everything for the bigs. She had to be the passer in the post. She had to get the rebounds. She had to score. She had to be physical. She doesn't need to do all of that this season with Aaliyah Edwards. So now Olivia Nelson-Ododa can just focus on the strengths of her game, and then Aaliyah Edwards can come in and do the bruising, battle it down with her strength, her physicality. So they just pair so well together, and having each other on the court, I think it plays to both of their strengths and makes both of them better.
Yeah, exactly. I think we've seen that a lot in these last couple of games where Nika Mule hasn't been in, and they've been on the court together quite a bit from the kind of opening tip, and they've been able to handle these other bigs really well, probably better than they did even some during the season, because they just play so well together. And I think that's going to be really crucial going into tonight too, that just having both of them on the floor against both of Baylor's bigs is going to help a lot. I don't think they need to win the battle in the paint tonight, right? I think everyone's kind of talking about that battle. I don't think they need to win that. I think the guards are going to be better than Baylor's guards. So really they just need to hold their own in the paint and not allow, Melissa Smith to go off for 25 points inside. But they don't need to win that battle. They just need to hold their own and somewhat contain Baylor's guards and get some buckets on the other end.
Right. I think you said it best. UConn just needs to hold their own. They can't let Baylor dominate down there. And if it's close to a stalemate, or maybe just throwing out random numbers, but a 5 rebound margin one way or another, Baylor's not getting a ton of second chance opportunities. things of that nature. It feels like that starts to really skew heavily to UConn, but I still feel like it is a lot to ask of Olivia Nelson-Ododa, who this is the game that she can prove herself. She can erase any and all questions about whether or not she's one of the best centers in the country by going out here and getting UConn to the Final Four. If she does that, we will never, ever again have to talk about that Baylor game last season, except in terms of, yeah, that was a very crucial point in her career, but we're never going to have to reference that, say, can she do it? And same thing with Aaliyah Edwards. I think Edwards has been fantastic this year, but as we always talk about, she bullies these smaller opponents. So if Edwards can come out, and really, she's just a freshman, so she can hold her own, maybe get 10 points, 5 rebounds, somewhere in that range, I think that's going to be a really good sign for her that she can compete at this level too, because when those two are clicking, UConn is just probably an unstoppable team. So as we've talked about a lot, Baylor is definitely the team that has the best personnel to match up with those two. So if UConn can handle that, or if even those two can dominate the matchup, I don't really know. If UConn can dominate the matchup in the post, they're winning this game by 20 points.
Yeah. I don't think that's going to happen, but yeah, if they come in and dominate inside, between that and then UConn's guards, I think being the better set of guards in the backcourt, they're going to win it handedly. But like you said, I think they just need to hold their own, right? Like Liv is going to be a tough matchup for her, but if she can come in and just, she needs to do like what she did against Iowa. She doesn't need to score a ton of points. If you just get on the glass, impact the game in other ways, I think that's the most crucial thing for her. I think Baylor is like second in the nation for the amount of their own misses that they rebound. So you got to keep them off the offensive glass. That's going to be a big problem for UConn, I think, if they allow them to kind of get a lot of their own misses. So coming in, just kind of crashing the glass, doing what she does best, passing out and helping distribute on offense, that type of stuff is really what they need Olivia Nelson-Ododa to do tonight. And then Aaliyah Edwards, I think it's a tough matchup for her. She's just a freshman. But I do think that, these Baylor guards aren't like I said, like Kalani Brown and Lauren Cox. They're not as big. So she's still going to have an opportunity to be physical inside. And I think she's going to be able to handle that. And I'm interested to see kind of how she matches up with them. I think it's still a tougher test than what she's seen, but I still think she has a bit of an edge on the physicality.
And I think that part about Olivia Nelson-Ododa not needing to score is definitely something that we've seen develop in her game. Honestly, in the postseason, she didn't score a ton in the championship game against Marquette, but I thought she played pretty well in that game. Same thing with Iowa. I think it was 11 rebounds, 7 assists. She doesn't need to do the scoring, especially when Aaliyah Edwards is going off for 18 points. Nelson-Ododa, I feel like, is almost playing her best when she's not scoring a ton, and it helps when she's scoring, but now that she doesn't have that weight on her shoulder, again, like I said earlier, where she has to do everything in the post, if she can just run the offense through that low block, as she's done really well in this tournament, that helps make you kind of more inside-out team, and it really makes their guards more dangerous, because when you can dump the ball inside, and with how good Paige Beckers and Kristen Williams and Avina Westbrook are off the ball, that suddenly makes UConn so much more difficult to defend.
Right, exactly. And I think that's going to be crucial tonight, especially because Baylor's defense is so suffocating. So they're going to need to move off the ball and move around and move the ball to get the buckets. They're not going to be able to come down like they did a lot against Iowa and just get easy looks, because Baylor's defense is not going to allow for that. So they can run the ball in through the post and kind of distribute the ball a little bit better. That's going to be a huge advantage for their guards as well. And I think you have to talk about Paige Beckers in this one too, because Dee Richards is probably going to be who's assigned to defend her, and it's going to be by far, I think, the toughest defense that Beckers has seen all season. I mean, Dee Richards is the reigning National Player of the Year. She's 6'2", she's so long. She really can get her hand in there and get, pick Paige's pocket, and Paige is going to have to be aware of that matchup, and it's going to be a little bit more difficult today to get her going.
Yeah. I mean, everyone's talked about the bigs, and that is a very big storyline. But I think just personally, I'm most excited to see how Paige and Dee go up against each other, because, like you said, she hasn't faced this type of challenge this year. And I think she's only had one game where she's been in single digits points the entire season. So she always, even on the games that she's not playing that great, generally always figures out a way to get points. So I'm curious to see how Paige maybe counters that, or maybe UConn just accepts that Paige isn't going to score a ton, and she becomes the facilitator that she's already really good at doing. That does require Kristen Williams and Avina Westbrook to step up, but that could be a way that they try and neutralize Dee Richards by just Paige's focus is not going to be on scoring. She's going to be the super distributor. and the weight's going to be on the junior shoulders, which is probably where it should be anyways in this game, considering Kristen Williams has played in these type of games. I mean, it wasn't like the Elite Eight that she had her freshman year against Louisville. That was not a cakewalk, even though it finished as a pretty wide margin. They needed to battle that entire game. Westbrook has been in the NCAA tournament at least, so they're the ones with this experience. I still think Paige is going to play well in some capacity. We just might not necessarily see it in her points.
Yeah, and I think it'll probably also take her a little bit to get going. I think it's going to take some time for her to adjust to having Richards on her. So I expect, in the first half, we're probably not going to see many shots from her, but hopefully she still finds a way to distribute. And then, like you said, Williams and Westbrook are going to have to step up, but we saw them do that against Iowa. So I feel like they're in a good position, right? They just need to kind of build on what they did against Iowa. They're not going to score 90 points tonight, but just kind of try to get everybody involved. If that they can do that, get out in transition when they have chances. Baylor turns it over about 16 times a game, so there's still opportunities to get out in transition, get some easy buckets that way. That always helps get UConn's offense going. So things like that, and just I think being settled and not getting flustered by Baylor's size and length out there, and just running their stuff and getting good looks.
Yeah, and Kristen Williams, obviously a huge X factor in this game, because as we saw against Iowa, we shouldn't overlook her offensive talent. For as good as she's been defensively, as good as she was against Caitlin Clark, her offense is still the strength of her game. And when she's on, very, very few defenders can stop her. So if Kristen Williams starts going off for 10 points in a quarter, if she has 10 points in that first quarter, is hitting that three, then maybe Baylor's going to have to move Didi Richards over to Kristen Williams, and then that frees Paige up to do more things. So I think we just saw the ultimate Kristen Williams experience, not just with the defense, but she had that aggressive mentality that so many times we don't see from her when she's too passive, when she doesn't demand the ball, she doesn't go attack the rim. There was none of that against Iowa. She scored in pretty much every single fashion. Her three-point shots were falling. She had some really nice drives to the basket. She's got a really nice pull-up jumper when she uses it. So her offensive game is so strong and so well-balanced as long as it's on, that if that's the Kristen Williams that shows up tonight, either that's going to mean that Didi Richards is on her and she's playing well, it's going to free up Paige, but it just gives UConn so many more options for scoring. And I feel like their offense is going to be what decides whether or not they win this game.
Yeah, I think the three-point shots falling again tonight could be a huge key for them. I think, that's not something that Baylor does a lot of. They mostly go inside. It doesn't mean they can't shoot the three, but they really don't shoot the three often. They've got a couple players in Moon Erson that actually hits them down at a pretty decent rate. And then Dejanay Carrington takes a handful of game, but she doesn't hit very many. So they're not going to score a ton of three-pointers. That's someplace that UConn can get an edge if they can get those shots to fall tonight. But we've also seen all season that that's been something UConn struggled with too. But I think, if they can just get their offense going, that's going to be key. That they're not going to, win the defensive battle, right? Like Baylor's defense is going to be better than UConn's defense tonight, most likely. So they've got to find ways to get around that and knock down shots.
Hey, last pregame show, I said Anna Makarat was going to start hitting three-pointers. Hit 2 3-pointers at the end of that Iowa game. If she can actually be the player that we saw her freshman year, that I still don't think we've really seen this season, that also just adds a completely new element to UConn's game. And I don't really know if I'd feel comfortable betting on that if I was UConn, but I think you do have to give her some minutes early in this game, especially if the offense is struggling. She would probably be my first sub off the bench in this game if UConn's having trouble scoring points, because it always feels like there's such a hot and cold nature with her. And if you can get her in there and she can see the ball go through the rim a couple times and start feeling it, then all of a sudden you have that three-point threat. And same with Avina Westbrook. Westbrook started the season really, really hot from three, hit an ice-cold stretch towards the end of the year, but has shot the ball pretty well in the NCAA tournament. So I feel like those two players are going to be really key. And I feel like we're going to see what type of performance we're going to get out of them pretty quickly in this game from their first few shots.
Yeah, for sure. They're definitely going to be key kind of on that shooting front. I think really both the sophomores have a chance to be pretty important tonight. Anna, if she can come in and make some shots. And then if UConn's having trouble on the glass, I think we could see quite a bit of Aubrey Griffin as well, because she's just someone that's going to kind of sky in there and get those rebounds. And I think that's one of the kind of easiest ways for this game to go not UConn's way, is if they're not doing well in the glass. They've got to get rebounds. They can't let Baylor get those second chance points, and they've got to try to get some second chance points of their own. So I could see Griffin also having a big impact on this game if they need the help on the glass.
I have been just driving the train that Aubrey Griffin at some point is going to go off for like 25 points. And I think I've even said that it's going to come in a really important game. I think I've probably said that about both Anna and Aubrey. Maybe both of them combined for like 40 points tonight, and just something wild like that happens. But I still feel very strongly that Aubrey Griffin is just going to have a huge game at some point. And again, it doesn't even need to be the points because of how good she is defensively and on the boards, but we have seen how good she is when she gets scoring. So it'll be interesting to see how much she gets used because her minutes have been a little limited. Just another thing with the rebounding is Olivia Nelson-Adota, through so much of her career, has just gotten rebounds because she's taller than everyone and her arms are longer than everyone. But against Iowa, she was really boxing out super well. She was going and getting these tough rebounds. She had to work to get those 11 rebounds. It was a just incredible display of rebounding. And that's the type of Olivia Nelson-Adota we need to see tonight because every single rebound is going to be a battle. I think Moon Urson said it yesterday that Baylor is going to be going for every single loose ball, for every single rebound. UConn really needs her and Aaliyah Edwards to play like they did on the boards against Iowa because if that starts to slip, then for as good as UConn's defense might be, they can't allow Baylor these multiple possessions because it's a lot harder for the offense to keep up on the other end if they're doing that.
Yeah, exactly. I think they're in a lot of games, right? They have so many smaller opponents against them that the ball's just kind of fall in their hands if it goes up to glass. But they need to be after those boards tonight because Melissa Smith and Queen Igbo are going to be after them, and they have a lot of size. So it's not necessarily a size advantage inside for UConn. It actually might be a bit of a size disadvantage inside for UConn tonight. So they're really going to have to work to make sure that they're on the glass.
Yeah, definitely. So the starters just came out. Same starting lineup as the last two games. Paige Beckers, Aaliyah Edwards, Olivia Nelson-Adota, Avina Westbrook, and Kristen Williams. No Nika Mule. As Gino said yesterday, that was probably expected. No official word from the team, but it was reported that she was probably going to miss out tonight. So what kind of impact does it have not having Nika Mule? Obviously, she hasn't played for the better part of 2 or 3 games here, but she still has been a very crucial piece to this team. So what is UConn missing without her?
Yeah, I mean, I think obviously on the defensive end is what comes to mind first. She's been so good and has set the tone defensively for UConn this season, and I think they'll miss that again tonight. Baylor has some good guards. Dee Richards doesn't score a lot, but you've got Moon Urson and Dejanay Carrington, who comes in off the bench but plays 1 minute, and their Trinity Oliver, who's their other starter, that are both really strong guards, and they'll miss that defensive presence, I think, kind of trying to guard both of them. And then on the offensive end, I mean, we've seen her at times go off for a handful of shots from beyond the arc, and her 3-point shooting can be good. So I think they're going to miss that tonight as well.
Right, and just the energy that she brings. I think UConn started a little slow in these NCAA tournament games. Not concerningly slow, but they haven't really jumped out to a fast start. And I think not having Mule probably plays some sort of part in that. And also, I would probably say that if Nika Mule's in there and she can bring the ball up, then that's probably better for Paige playing against Dee Richards because she's not only handling the distribution duties, but she can try and shake Richards more. She can come off screens, do that sort of thing. I feel like it's probably going to be a little harder for Paige to get open if she's bringing up the ball on a consistent basis.
Yeah, that's a good point as well. I think that Richards matchup is going to be something you're definitely keep an eye on through all of this, and having Nika would probably make that a little bit easier.
Okay, so let's get on to the predictions. Her hoop stats has UConn with a 63.5% chance of winning. That feels kind of high. I mean, I guess it's a little more than 50%, but still, I feel like this game is going to come right down to the wire, and it's going to be a lot closer to a coin flip than one team being favored by 10%, however much that really means.
Yeah, I think this feels as close as it can get to a kind of a 50-50 game. We can really see it going either way.
So UConn also predicted to win by 4 points according to her hoop stats. What do you think? Does UConn get to its 13th straight Final Four, or does Baylor snap that tonight?
I think they're going to win it. I think they will figure out a way to kind of get it done. I think when you look at this UConn team compared to like last year when they played Baylor, the Baylor team has changed some, but UConn, I think, has gotten significantly better since then. So I do feel like they're going to come out on top. But I feel like that +4 is probably about right. I don't see this game being decided by more than 5-7 points at the most.
Yeah, I've gone back and forth on it because when the matchup came out, or even just at the beginning of the NCAA tournament, I didn't feel great about it. I still, honestly, if you couldn't tell from everything that I've said about her, I still don't have a ton of confidence in Olivia Nelson-Ododa. And it's one of those things where I feel like she has to prove what I feel wrong. And until she does that, I have a hard time thinking that she will. But then there's also just the intangible factors, I guess you could call it. Kim Mulkey, her season ends in the Elite Eight a lot. Before she won the national championship in the last NCAA tournament in 2019, Baylor lost in the Elite Eight. I think it was 4 straight seasons. And then you just think about UConn getting to the Final Four 12 times in a row. I really don't think this is UConn's worst team in that group of 12. I think probably it's better. I don't really know who it would be better than, but I don't feel like it's the worst. This is still a really good UConn team. I don't think you get to 12 straight Final Fours without having something that gives you an edge over your opponent. And yes, for a lot of those years, that something was just being ridiculously more talented than everyone else. But still, just my gut tells me that it's going to be Baylor, but a different part of my gut, if that makes sense, tells me that it's going to be UConn. So I think I'm going to pick UConn. And also, I've said this throughout the season, but I don't think Paige Beckers lets them lose. I think she is just at a different level than anyone we've ever seen. So I think UConn wins on a Paige Beckers buzzer beater.
All right. That's going to be stressful, so we all have that to look forward to.
Yeah, well, Bird at the buzzer, Beckers at the buzzer, it has a nice ring to it. And there's the history behind it. All right, so before we wrap up here, give me one more prediction for the game.
I think Aaliyah Edwards is still going to have another good game. I think she's going to come out there and be able to kind of really help UConn hold their own in that post battle to kind of be kind of the factor that pushes UConn over to win this.
All right, I have a few that I feel like I want to get off my chest. One, I'm going to stick with my Anna Makarov prediction and say that she has maybe not a great game, but she has a very large impact in this game, whether that's hitting 3-pointers at a key time, hitting a bunch of 3-pointers, I don't know, but I feel like she's going to have an impact in this game. I think my second prediction is that Paige Beckers doesn't have that many points, but again, she has the one that when it matters, and Kristen Williams is going to be the leading scorer again, and we're going to get the Kristen Williams that we saw against Iowa. I really feel like she's finally turned the page in her game. And Gino always talks about how your junior year, that's when players at UConn are supposed to take the next step and start to realize their full potential. And really, for the first time in her career against Iowa, I felt like she took that step. I don't think now she's going to come out and just completely lay an egg. I think she's going to build on that, and it's going to be really tough for Iowa to stop her.
Yeah, I mean, I think if Kristen Williams comes out and plays like she did against Iowa, it's going to be hard for UConn to lose this game between all the pieces they have on the floor. But her playing at that level on top of it, it's going to be, I think UConn's going to come out on top if they get that from Kristen Williams.
I'm glad someone in the comments liked a different part of my gut. Thank you. But 7:00 tip on ESPN. You can follow me on Twitter for updates throughout the game at Daniel V. Connolly. Megan, are you going to be on the Her Hoop Stats Twitter?
Just be on mine today, so at Megan Gower.
Yep, at Megan Gower. No underscore. I always want to put an underscore in there, but there's no underscore. Well, that's going to do it for this episode of the Chasing Perfection pregame show. Thanks to everyone